All right, looks like we have everyone in the chat. Good morning and afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Ellery. It's my pleasure to welcome you today to the next of our ADB and PWWA webinar series on WASH in the Pacific. I'm joining you today from Fremantle or Walyalup in Western Australia. This is land on which the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation are the traditional custodians, to whom I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Today, we're going to be addressing the topic of utility landowner partnerships to ensure reliable access to water and sanitation services for all. I'm going to ask you to keep your microphones on mute unless you're speaking, but the chat will be open to take your questions. This is being recorded and you should have received that notification as you joined. We may take time for a few quick questions of clarification after each speaker, but we'll be prioritizing time for a robust Q&A after both speakers have finished. So without any, the schedule should take us through to 11 o'clock or and 1 hour session. And so without any further ado, I'm going to call on Mr. Norio Sato, who is the Senior Director from the Water and Urban Development Sector Office of the ADB, to set the scene of the significance of today's topic for the Pacific. The microphone is all yours, Norio.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, and very good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to this third Pacific webinar in 2024. So we have the pleasure of co-hosting today's webinar again with our partner, the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association, or PWWA. So I would like to acknowledge colleagues from the PWWA, utilities and government agencies across the Pacific, along with our development partners and colleagues from ADB. So today's session will be an insightful discussion looking at ways Pacific water utilities are partnering with landowners to implement development projects and ensure water security for all. In the Pacific, up to 80% of land and water resources are vested in the stewardship of customary landowners. So this often requires water service providers and government officials to work collaboratively with landowners to provide safe and reliable water services to the public. So today we will hear from Chuuk Public Utility Corporation from the Federated States of Micronesia and Solomon Water from Solomon Islands on the innovative ways of legal and social approaches they have taken to access land and water resources in cooperation with landowners. We'll consider the important question of how water service providers can make modern and traditional land and water management systems work for the benefit of the wider public who are water service customers, while also respecting custodianship of indigenous communities over these resources. So thank you for joining us today again, and best wishes for an engaging discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Norio. The co-host for this webinar series is the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association, and it's my pleasure to request Ms. Utility Satuala, who is the project coordinator for the PWWA, to speak to the opportunities that exist when utility members share and learn from each other's experiences. Over to you, Ms. Utility.
Thank you, Mark, and talofa, and welcome to everyone from Samoa. I would like to welcome you all to this webinar series today. As earlier mentioned by Nario, the discussion will be focusing on building successful utility landowner partnerships for reliable wash services in the Pacific. I'm delighted to open this important webinar, organized jointly by ADB and also ourselves. Today we gather virtually to explore a topic critical to our region, sustainable future, which is forging successful partnerships between water utilities and landowners. Providing safe and reliable water services requires more than infrastructure and technical expertise. It demands secure and long-term access to land and water resources. In the Pacific, where up to 80% of land and water resources are vested in the stewardship of customary landowners, collaborations becomes very essential. Our water services providers and government officials must work hand in hand with our indigenous communities to navigate modern, as also mentioned, binarial and traditional land and water management systems. In the next hour, we will be learning from experiences from our esteemed panelists from Solomon Islands and Chuuk. We will also be navigating any legal and social approaches that we can explore, some frameworks and social strategies to access land and water resources. We will also be developing a cooperative approaches. Together we can seek ways to ensure that water security for all is being discussed for our Pacific, especially in terms of land access. So why does this topic matters? It does matter because the success of our utilities hinges on these partnerships. By respecting the indigenous custodianship while serving our wider public, we can achieve reliable wash services across the Pacific. As you're all aware, PWWA will be hosting its annual conference in September, first week of September, from the 2nd to the 6th. So we'll be happy to hear from all the utilities or any organizations that have had experiences with these issues in the Pacific and also around the world. We have our call for abstracts that's currently out at the moment, and it's due on the 5th of July. So you're most welcome to put in a paper, and that would be a platform that we can discuss this again. But for today, thank you for joining this conversation. I encourage your active participation, share your insights, ask questions, and engage with our experts. Let's collectively shape a resilient water future. Once again, welcome to this vital dialogue. Let's learn, collaborate, and build pathways towards sustainable wash services in the Pacific. Faftai lava.
Thank you, Ms. Aleti. In today's webinar, we're going to hear how two utilities in the Pacific, in the Solomon Islands and the Federated States of Micronesia, are addressing the challenges of securing the rights of the pipes, which is downstream of the sources, or the rights of the water, which is upstream of the sources, in settings where access to land is either customary, is contested, or the rules are compromised. Our two speakers from water utilities will address the very practical issue of how they are protecting water resources and water infrastructure. The first presentation from the Solomon Islands will address primarily the safeguarding of the water resources, while the second from Chuuk in FSM will focus more on the safeguarding of the water and sewerage assets. Robert Iramalefo, is a young water professional and the National Water Catchment Officer for the Solomon Water. Robert has a Master's of Science in Water Quality and Treatment from Curtin University and has previously interned with Mort Water in Perth, Western Australia. Kembo Mida is the CEO of Chook Public Utility Corporation and has been for the last 6 years, and is also the interim CEO of the Association for Micronesia Utilities. Kembo is a partner in the Ramp and Meter law firm who owns a hotel and restaurant in Chook State and is also an avid fisherman. I'm going to be handing over the microphone now to Robert, please.
Good morning, everyone. I talk from Solomon Island this morning about the topic of payments for ecosystem services in the Solomon Islands. Well, the outline of my presentations will look at spring water source, where our spring waters come from, the map of the catchments that the water comes through, or the karst and the groundwater, and the main source, Congolese Spring, and the typical logging operation sites where they use commissos and community logging, and then conclusions. Very short. You can see here our water source from Congolese Spring comes across almost three catchment. Our first one is Kohove, Kovi, and Kongolai. So the groundwaters through the karst comes through Kovi and abusive in Kongolai. So the Kohove catchments feed Kovi through groundwaters and surface water, and then Kongolai through groundwaters and also surface water. So the three catchment here you can see, the one with the black color, that's one the government declared as a catchment, but it's still customary land. The Kovi one is still customary, and Kohove customary lands. You can see the waters coming through from Kohove, Kovi to Kongolai, where's this red dot. So across through almost 3 kilometers underground to Kongolai. You can look at Kongolai Spring, where it's feed 40% of water supplies for Honiara town. And Kongolai catchment is already declared as a catchment. Kohove and Kovi are still customary land. The things that can suck down the water stations like rainfall and the turbidity. From our past data, 2020 to 2023, from studies, University of Queensland, and now we call Flofio, doing hydrology and get the data a bit in the site. About 5 NTU, take 131 hours. 20 NTUs, 34 hours in that period. But the data is now still updated in 2024. The other side, you can see these logging operations where happens in the catchment Kohove and Kongolai. It can be commissal and also it can be a community one. So people are doing commissal and community. Commissals like using the big machines and doing export of the logs, and the communities like the milling for timber and sell it for the peoples around Honiara. So we find out that it's better to engage with the communities, trying to talk with the communities, landowners, to make sure that we define or identify the boundaries of the catchment and also some of the sinkholes that need to be protected or zoning from logging activities. And the benefits that our people's communities that they live close to the Congolese source, they receive the payment for the stations where our pumps located, and also the pipeline easement. But for the catchment, generally not yet, because the land is still customary. But they really protected the source from disturbance like COVID, the middle one. And non-monetary, you can see we, Solomon Waters, supply them with water supply, standby, and also we engage third-party technical support like NACAO, work with Live-on-Land to work with the community to come up with a framework or a base map to identify the peoples that they live and what they want in the communities. And the UQ with Flofio consultants, they are doing hydrology to make sure that we base the catchment with scientific data so that we can map and zoning where we should not touch or protect it. That's for Congolese. And coming back to the topics like Congolese, Kohove, and Kovi, you can see loggings are operating in Kohove, the commissions and also the communities. And Congolese also loggings up there doing community one or even commissions. Only Kovi, the middle one, are still protected, even though it's customary land, because they understand that this is where actually feeds Congolese, our main source that supplies our water supply. So they still keep that environment and forest protected. So to come up with a small conclusion here that Congolese, even though it's a declared one, but the declaration is not always effective. People are going there and doing loggings, community loggings, because they have the right of the customary land. And the Congolese one, they, because of their local knowledge that this is the main source for Congolese, they still protect it. But the unclear legal ownership makes it benefit sharing difficult, because we are not identify who's the legal ownership of the customary land. In Kohove, you can see there's a commercial logging activities that happened in 2017 to 2020, where it almost damaged the full catchment. But somehow the logging stopped because of the government interventions. And the cast underground water system from Kohove to Kovi is still more protected. But the only risk that we might facing now is the community logging continues. They use the potable Lucas mill to cut the timbers, but they use more large scale to move the logs from where the original positions for the Lucas mill. That's the main risk for the our catchment. I think, thank you very much.
Fantastic, Robert. Thank you for a very succinct presentation and really highlighting some of the complexities that declaration isn't always effective, and customary land ownership sometimes is extremely effective. And I don't see any questions in the chat just yet, so we'll come back in the Q&A to more in-depth questions for yourself and for Kembo. And so I would like to now hand over to Kembo to talk about securing private land in Chuk. Thank you, Kembo.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'd like to share the method we're using in Chuk to secure lands for water sanitation assets. What we've done basically is we've looked at making landowners shareholders so that as the utility makes money, the landowners also make money, in addition to traditional lease agreements. So just a bit about the utility. We're a fairly small utility. All right, let me skip this. The population on the main island is 15,000, but overall Chuk has a population of about 60,000 people. We currently have 500 water customers. We generate roughly 20 million gallons per month. Our non-revenue water is about 50%, so we lose about half of our generated water. We are fortunate in Chuk because we do have a pretty big grant for the size of our utility, $35 million from ADB. Some of the main objectives is to put in new water lines, upgrade our treatment plant, capacity building. So we will go from 500 customers to about 2,000 customers when the project is completed. We actually just signed a contract for the construction company. They will start installing the new water line next month. What has not worked for us? Land has always been an issue in the small island countries, and the smaller your islands, the more difficult it will be to secure land. So what hasn't worked for us? Traditional lease-based agreement on the size of your land. The reason that hasn't worked is because, as you know, grinder station, lift stations, deep wells, pumps, they're very small assets, although they play a very important role in the overall system. They're very small, so landowners are not attracted to traditional lease agreements and generally will not sign them. Eminent domain doesn't work because that's basically a taking by the government. So basically a forceful taking. Politicians will not do eminent domain, even though we do have the power to do it. Politicians don't do it. It's just too risky on the politics side of things. Number 3, installment payments don't work. Again, small property, you're talking about very small amounts. So if you're telling a landowner you're going to pay them every month for 20 years or 25 years, they're not interested. Donor money, a lot of our people think that 35 million, oh wow, I'm going to get a lot of money from those 35 million. And we have to tell them through community outreach that donor partners specifically exclude monies to be used for securing land. They expect that the state government will take ownership of securing lands. But what has worked for us? That's the main thing I want to focus on today. So what we've done is a 3-step approach. So number 1 is we pay upfront to landowners. So we'll do a 20-25-year lease agreement. When they sign their name, they get 50% of their lease agreement that day. The other 50% is paid within 12 months. We've also added an inflation clause. Small island countries are not protected from inflation. So we've added an inflation which has helped landowners to see that as life gets more expensive to live, they get a little bit of inflation built in there. And then the third thing we've added is what's called a benefit share. And this is what I'll spend most of my presentation on. So in addition to an upfront payment inflation clause, we give landowners a benefit share. And this goes to making your customers or landowners shareholders. What the benefit share is, first, we forecast what our sales will be in terms of after the non-revenue. So let's say we're going to sell 200 million gallons in a year minus our losses, 100 million. For every million gallons of water we sell, we will put $200 into a special account. At the end of the year, we split that money among the landowners. And how we do that is 70-30. So if you own an asset you will get 70% of that pot of money, regardless of the size of your land. And the 30% remaining, we split among landowners based on the size of your land. And I will go through specific examples after this. Many of the landowners have very much appreciated the benefit share because they view themselves as making money along with the utilities. One of the biggest problems we've had, and I've experienced it, I've been a lawyer for 20 years, and landowners want more money. And when they see utility companies, they see us in uniforms and driving nice cars, and they say, "You guys are making so much money off my land." And they look at us more of not as a partner, but kind of taking advantage of them. But through the benefit share, we've gone and done community outreach and telling landowners, look, the more we sell, the more you make. And so we go over examples with them, and you'll see on the screen here, a grinder station is 15 square meters. And under a traditional lease agreement, without inflation, without benefit share, we would have paid that landowner $750 US. And I think this is 20-year examples. Now with inflation, we pay them an extra $230. And then under the benefit share, they get $7,400 or a total of $8,000, $8,400. If you go down to the bottom, the grinder station, the total increase percentage to their lease agreement is 1,000%. So we go and tell those landowners, look, you would have made $750, but with the inflation adjustment and the benefit share, you're making $8,000, and you're going to get half of that when you sign the lease agreement, the other half within the year. And then on the benefit share part, that depends on an annual basis, how much we sell. If you look at the water tank land, now water tank is big land, so 1,000 square meters. If we had just paid landowners based on the size of land, obviously the water tank landowners would make most of the money. And as we know, water pumps is just as important in a system as a water tank. In fact, probably just as important. So if you were a landowner, 1,000 square meters, you would get 50,000 under a base lease or traditional lease agreement for 20 years. Inflation adjustment, you would get another 15,000, and benefit share, you would get 26,000 for a total of 92,000, which is pretty significant increase. If you go down to the bottom, that's 185% increase for water tank owners. So we've been able to secure just about high 90% of our assets. We have about 130 assets in our system, water and sanitation. And the benefit share has made all the difference for us in terms of securing lands, but also getting landowners to feel that they're also a part of the utility, in that we make money, they make money. So when we go to clean an asset, clean the area, the landowners are happy to let us in. They see themselves as partners with the utilities. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to share what we've used to secure lands for our assets. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kembo. And, thanks, Robert and Kembo, for really, succinct presentations, and also for the time they spent with us, leading up to this, talking through their presentations. I see we've got a couple of good questions in the chat. Ian Cunningham, you've got a great question there. Would you mind posing that to Robert, please? And Kembo, if you wouldn't mind turning on your camera as well. Thank you very much. Ian, over to you. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, both. Really interesting. This one's for Robert, but we'd like to hear from Kembo as well. Just curious, you mentioned part of the process was elevating local knowledge. I was just curious to hear about what sort of things were being shared and processes you're using to draw that up. Start with that one.
Over
Sorry,
to
Mark,
you,
I didn't
Robert.
hear that.
I think it was mainly for Robert, and it was examples about the ecosystem payment and what are the challenges with that, as well as the what are the opportunities going forward with the ecosystem payment.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Ian, for the question. Actually, the ecosystems in Kohovi, where it's feed Congolai, still protected. Since in the past, like they transfer the knowledge from inherit, like they pass the knowledge that this catchment is the only one that gives water to Congolai. So they keep it, but still customary land. It's very hard for Solomon water or difficult to give the shares without the legal, who's the legal owner of that customary land, because like there are many tribes that own a particular land. So we are trying to take on board the third parties like Nakau to work like doing social mappings, and even some of the approach from the government, land recording, to make sure we identify who's the legal landowner of that particular catchment, so that whatever we plan to give for the communities or the landowners in a legal process. Otherwise, they can pay and claim another money. So we're trying our best to work with a third party and directly from Solomon work with the communities to make sure we identify who's the true landowners. Yeah.
And I might ask Kembo, I know Kembo has something to add on that in terms of contested land or unable to identify landowners. Kembo, would you mind, speaking to your experience on that?
Sure, Mark. Many of our landowners, particularly those that come from the rural areas, they cannot afford to obtain certificate of titles. Obtaining certificate of titles can be cumbersome. It can be quite expensive. And people from the rural area generally are farmers. They don't come to town that often. So what the utility has done is we've actually offered landowners to assist them in the process to obtaining a certificate of title. So we will have them sign a waiver saying that they agree to use the utility. We don't provide them legal advice. We're not their lawyers. But we have done the process for them where we submit a claim to Land Commission. We have to publish or post around different state and national offices the proposed area that a certificate of title will be issued. There has to be a hearing. They issue a determination of ownership. 90 days after the determination of ownership, a certificate of title is issued. During that 90 days, anyone can appeal and make a claim saying that that is their land. Once it goes to court, that's a different story. But for the most part, we've been able to secure certificate of titles for landowners. And once they get their title, they then enter the lease agreement with the utility. Now, if someone files a case against the utility and we already have a lease agreement, we then do something called I think it's called an interpleader. An interpleader is when you put money with the court and you let the two parties or three parties fight it out in court, and the winner will get the money at the end of the litigation, but the utility can continue to use the property during the litigation. So the point really here is that we actually help landowners secure titles, because if you don't get titles, you basically can't enter into a lease agreement because you can't confirm who are the landowners. Thanks.
Thanks, Kembo. And that's a great, example of how, even when it's contested, how it enables CPUC to at least set aside money for the sharing arrangement, even when the particular entity that owns the land is not yet clearly defined. I see a question here from Kate. Would you and one from Maria. So I'll take both those questions and then ask both Kembo and Robert to respond. So to you first, Kate, and then Maria.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you both, Robert and Kembo, for such really interesting presentations today. I'm learning a lot and got a lot of ideas already. I'm curious, particularly for Kembo, but also Robert, how has the landowners and community responses been to the approaches taken by CPUC and by Solomon Water? Are most of the landowners happy with the approaches that your utilities are taking, or has there been some resistance or even refusal as well? Thank you.
Thanks. I'll take that right there, and Maria, I'll come back to you. That's a great Kembo first, and then Robert. Thank you. Oops, we just lost Kembo. Yes, to you, please, Robert. The response from communities to this approach.
Thank you for the very good question. Since then, we're starting to work with the communities, because in the past there is no such thing that we close to the communities. So just recent from 2015 and coming up, we closely trying to work with the communities to make sure we hear from them what they want and what they like. That's why we take Nakau to like a third party, to like a neutral, to hear from the communities and report to us Solomon Waters. Sometimes we Solomon Water directly to the communities, but they will always like resist to give a full story of what they want. So that's why we take on board Nakau to like a third party to hear from the communities what they really want Solomon Waters to do for them. Yeah, because they still keep and protect the COVID catchment till now.
Thank you, Robert. I think we have temporarily lost Kembo, but I will in response to your question, I believe Kembo had mentioned earlier that they had, I think 99%, they had secured almost all of their assets and there was one landowner who had been holding out for approximately 15 years or so on signing an agreement, and it looked like they were actually going to secure that final agreement that was the one that was still pending, had been pending or waylaid for a very long time. And so especially with the benefit sharing, Kembo had mentioned that it had really increased they had managed to secure all of the contested or the land options that were still outstanding. I'll take that question. Maria had another one for Robert, so I'll take that one from Maria. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, Robert. Thanks for your presentation. I'm curious to hear more about the ecosystem payment approach, like how exactly communities sign up and how they benefit. And then I think there was a question also from Nauru later about, you know, there's large numbers of people sharing a title, which I think also happens in Solomon. So how you deal with, you know, multiple stakeholders, not just like one, I guess, landowner. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. For the ecosystems, we are currently work on the benefits that the people's protect the catchment. Not yet a clear directions what we will do for the communities unless they come up with their legalities, I mean the ownership, because currently people's that they claim the catchment, they are like 2 to 3 tribes. So we're trying our best, Solomon Waters, to make sure that there is a one legal ownership for the landowners, so that we can share what the Solomon Waters planning to share for the ecosystem payment. So currently we are dealing with that. Maybe in times go, we can identify the true landowners and we give them the benefits that are suitable for the particular areas.
Right. Thank you, Robert. I think there's a question about, you know, like any advice for, and it's from Ian Cunningham, any advice for other utilities in dealing with this? What have you learnt in dealing with this conflict, if you like, between landowners and utilities? Any advice for other utilities from your experience? Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Mark. It's very important because the waters from the customary lands. So it's very risk, like for any utilities to make sure that we secure where the source from. And if there is no secured, then we can see that loggings are going in because they want money. So it's very important when we find where's the source, we must secure that particular catchment or area where the utilities should work closely with the communities and the landowners and give some benefit sharings for them. I think that's the advice for any utilities, to make sure we secure the catchment phase before we going into an development where the source provide.
Thank you, Robert. I suppose one of the you know, like maybe this question you know, like for you know, like is a general one, you know, like legally in most of the Pacific Islands, water resources are owned by the state, groundwater resources, and the as well as surface water. However, you know, like there is even, you know, like on customary land, and you know, like there is a bill, you know, there is kind of legislation regarding that. Is that, what is the, you know, like, is that the position in Solomon Islands? And, you know, like, how is the legislative, you know, like, how is the legislation for the ownership of water versus land, how is that dealt with in Solomons?
Thank you, Mark. For the water, the state owns the water, but somehow, because the water comes out from the land and into the land, so the people's claim as their properties, like because they keep the land from damaging, so they keep the water also. So even though the government own the land, own the water, sorry, the water still runs through the land. So the people's own the land they are more way than the water. So if anything to take the water from their land, they have to meet their land first. Yeah, even though the water is for the government. So to access the water needs to access the land. So the government have to deal with the people first, that they own the land before they take the water that is free.
Fantastic, Robert. And in there, I think is really there's a real social perception challenge of understanding the difference between customary land and customary use of water on customary land versus the non-customary use of water on customary land. And it does seem as though there's a real kind of awareness and social challenge there, because the legal framework theoretically is there, but it really is a social and challenge. Is that a fair kind of part, summary of what you're attempting to achieve in the catchment in Kohove?
So sorry, come again. The question.
The question is the awareness amongst those in the catchment that of the need to, the social awareness of the need to protect the water resources for the state, rather than do whatever they like, that may, just because it's their land, they can't do whatever they like that will affect the water.
Good, Matt. Thank you. Currently we are doing awareness for the communities and talk to them that the catchment feeds Congolai, but somehow people's because they are the rightful owner, the ownership of the land, they can because some peoples they really like the awareness, but apart from some people, parts of the peoples they not really like the awareness. They can do whatever they want for their own selfishness benefit. So it's really challenging to for the community leaders to take everybody on board, since some people's their thinking is quite different from the others, unless we promise them with some initiative that can offset or logging or something like that. But we are doing our awareness on all the catchment for the communities and the landowners.
Thank you. Thanks, Robert. And I think there is this kind of dual role, I think, that utilities are struggling with, which is their relationship with customers and those who are the landowners, versus the relationships with the the citizens and those who are kind of potential future customers or are, you know, like upstream of the water resources. Welcome back, Kembo. We had a few questions for you, and there's one here from Bronwyn. I'll ask Bronwyn if she wouldn't mind asking that question. Thanks, Bronwyn.
Thanks, Mark. Welcome back, Kembo. My question is, with the benefit share arrangement, I mean, it sounds like it took quite a lot of effort and time for the utility to go through that process. I'm just wondering how, like, if you can give us a sense of what investment it did take from the utility and whether the utility has seen it as worth it. And also whether you see any positives that have come, like for other aspects of the business, like source protection or non-revenue water.
Thanks, Bronwyn. Sorry, we had a power outage. If it's not one thing, it's another. Yeah, the benefit share has been a game changer for the utility. Landowners want to renew, and also landowners who have leases that are going to expire soon have come forward and said, hey, I really want to do another 20, 25-year lease agreement under the benefit share, inflation clause, and upfront payment. So that's been a game changer. People have heard about it and are coming in to renew leases ahead of time. Generally, we contact landowners and say, hey, lease is up, but now landowners are knocking on our doors saying we're ready to move forward. In terms of the non-revenue water, that's a bit, it's still too early to tell. Our non-revenue water we've actually got it down to about 43% the past 6 months or so, but we can't get it any lower. And it's mainly due to the leaks in the old asbestos pipes. We are going to change those pipes and put in HDPE, and we're going to be putting in a SCADA system, flow meters, pressure loggers. We'll be able to track the flow of the water into different zones. We're also putting in smart meters and prepaid smart meters. So that should help us with our non-revenue water. In terms of whether the benefit share will help with the non-revenue water, we do hope that it does, because when we talk to landowners, we say, if you see a leak, please let us know as quick as possible, because the bigger the leak, the less water we're selling, the less money you'll make. If you find cheaters like your neighbors, even though you might be related to them, try to report them to us. So it's still too early to know if the benefit share will bring down the non-revenue water. But we have noticed that we've never been able to break 50% in the past 3 years. We're now at around 43%. We don't know if that has to do with other factors, or is the non-revenue water helping? I don't really know at this point. It's too early to tell.
Thank you, Kembo. I'm one very final quick one, Kembo. When we were speaking earlier, there was a discussion around the use of legal instruments versus social instruments, or how they match together. Would you mind responding to how you see those? And when we were talking earlier, you were very eloquent about how you see these pairing together.
Mark, can you let me know what is social instruments?
You know, winning people, you know, like building rapport with customers, and you know, like,
right.
and beyond customers, not just customers or landowners, but the community writ large.
Yes. So we've had a really consistent, regular, aggressive community outreach. It's been about 4 years now. This was a requirement of the ADB grant, the 35 million. We started doing it because it was a grant requirement, but we started to realize the benefits of these community outreach. They're very small and intimate. So you're talking 15, 20, maybe 30 people at the most every Saturday or every other Saturday. And it's generally going to be older people, the women and the kids that don't really come to town. So this idea that you can post a big conference at the governor's auditorium and everyone's going to come and listen in. It doesn't work. You really have to go out there with your people and sit in the community. We buy food, water, and we'll sit and we talk to the chiefs, the mayors, and we have them join us. We talk about the project, we talk about grants, we talk about landowners' rights, we talk about the fact that grants cannot be used to pay landowners, and then we talk about the benefit share. And we've been doing this for going on 4 years now. We take pictures, we do sign-in sheets, we post on our Facebook pictures of people in the community and what we talked about, and there's a lot of Chukis here and abroad, so we get a lot of comments on our Facebook. But I think what the community outreach has done is really taken our legal framework and it's spreading out in the communities. Had you just gone over to people, a landowner, and say, hey, this is a lease agreement we want you to sign, they wouldn't know the big picture of how a lease agreement fits into getting them water, getting them money, and making the system sustainable for the future. And if you can make landowners happy, your assets will be able to be maintained and you'll be able to bring in those revenues. So community outreach has been a total game changer for us. It's helped us with especially the community out there. You're just not going to be able to reach those people far out in the rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Kembo, and thank you all for all of the two presenters and for all of you for your participation. In the last few minutes, I'm going to just put in a plug for the PWWA conference, and if Sinead, if you would be so kind as to drop the link into the chat, so people can then click on and go ahead. And I think we've got one bit over a week for submission of abstracts, so please go ahead and pick that up out of the chat and at least have it open on your computer then. We will take a poll to assess the usefulness of today's webinar. We take this seriously, and we did receive feedback during the registration process that the experience of Chook may not be applicable in some of the bigger countries, say like PNG. What do you think? Do you think that the benefit share or the experience from Solomon Islands, do you feel that that is applicable in your context? And then finally, I would like you to request if you wouldn't mind turning on your photos for a group photo for posterity.